Hello and welcome back. In the previous lesson, we learned all about IAM users and we set up a few here and applied policies to them. In this lesson, we're going to talk about IAM groups. So since we already know so much about policies and IAM users, there's just a little more that we need to learn here to understand groups and how they're used. But groups specifically allow you to assign IAM permission policies to more than one user at a time. So this ability allows for easier access management to AWS resources. So over here in the console, let's click on groups and we see here that we have a group called admin group. But let's go ahead and let's create a new group and let's call this dev for developer. We'll click on next step. And let's say that for this group and during the creation process, it's giving me the option to add policies if I want here, or I can decide to just skip this step and apply policies later. But let's go ahead and follow the diagram here and let's assign an S3 full access policy to this group. So we now have a dev group, and if I click on that and then click on permissions, we see here that we have the Amazon S3 full access permission applied to this group. So that matches what's going on here in this diagram, except for the fact that we don't have any members currently a part of this group. So if I click on users, we now see that there is no users attached to this group. So let's do that. Actually, let's go back to users and let's add a couple of other users. Let's create Matt. And we'll also create Donna. You can create multiple users at one time. We'll give them console access. And I'll choose a custom password just for simplicity. But obviously, if you're creating more than one at a time, you probably want to select auto-generate so they each would get their own auto-generated passwords to log in with and then to reset once they were to log in. And now during the creation process, it gives me the option to add the user to a group. So I'm going to select to add both Matt and Donna to the dev group. So I'm creating new users and I'm assigning them to a group all at the same time. So now clicking back on groups, we now see here that our dev group has two users. If I click on it, we can see that the users are Donna and Matt. And Donna and Matt, through the policy that is attached to the group, both have access to S3. However, Kunal is not a part of the group, so in theory, he does not have access to S3. However, if you remember, in the previous lesson, I did attach an S3 policy directly to Kunal. So what I want to do now, since I don't need that to be applied directly to Kunal, because I'm going to add him to the group, I can come into the user, Kunal, I can open up his permissions here, and what I can do is I can click on Detach Policy. So right now, Kunal has no access to S3, but all I need to do now is add him to the group. So if I click back on Groups, click on Dev, click on Users, and then click on Add Users to this group, I can click on Kunal, click on Add User, and he is now added to this group. So now all three, Donna, Kunal, and Matt, through the policy attached to the group dev, have access to S3. So overall, that is just a quick overview and hands-on demonstration of how groups are used and managed to, one, add users to groups, and how it allows you to just apply a policy once to the group and then have it be applied to multiple users at the same time. And if you ever wanted to restrict access or just remove somebody from a group, what you can do is just simply click here, remove from group, and they would be removed from the group. So it really creates a nice way to manage users and apply policies to multiple users at the same time through using groups, as opposed to having to go through and add the same policy to each user individually. So that will conclude this lesson for now. In the next lesson, we're going to jump into and explore IAM roles and how that varies and is different from IAM policies and how it is used to grant access to different types of resources. So with that, we will conclude this lesson. Thank you for watching. You may now move on.